Guten Tag, this is Mr. K's, and this is 32.5b. 32.5b. Europe and Japan is in ruins. We looked at Europe last time we talked, and we saw vast devastation, 60 million people dead. The aftermath of the Holocaust being the Nuremberg trials, where Nazis were put on trial for their crimes. What about over in Japan? Well, we see 2 million Japanese die in World War II. 2 million Japanese die in World War II. Cities are ruined. Cities are ruined. And any colonies that Japan had, they lost. Colonial empire was stripped. Colonial empire was stripped. The Allies made a provision for the rebuilding of Japan. In doing so, they selected General Douglas MacArthur, who was the Supreme Allied Commander in World War II with his island hopping strategy. MacArthur oversaw the occupation of Japan. He oversaw the occupation of Japan. And just a footnote, Japan was only overseen by MacArthur for about 7 years until it was strong enough to be on its own. That's pretty amazing. Demilitarization. The Allies insisted on stripping them of their military. So demilitarization is disbanding a nation's armed forces. Disbanding a nation's armed forces. Japan was left with a small police force. Japan was left with a small police force. Now, just like in the Nuremberg war trials, the Japanese were put on trial. War criminals face trials and execution. War criminals face trials and executions. And the biggest fish that they caught was Premier Hideaki Tojo, who was a military dictator, almost like a shogun. Premier Hideaki Tojo was hanged. He was hanged. Now, why did that happen? It's because he directed the abuse of prisoners in concentration camps. Australian, British, American soldiers suffered at the hands of Tojo's administration. So he was hanged. Japan moves towards the democracy, democratization. That's creating a government elected by the people. Creating a government elected by the people. And it becomes a constitutional monarchy. A constitutional monarchy. They have a piece of paper that outlines how they're going to rule themselves. Monarchy, remember, they still had the emperor, Hirohito. He could stay on the throne, but he had to declare that he was not God. He was not God. That was an important thing. And he lasted, I think, all the way up until the 1970s. He was the last of the war leaders that died, well into the 1970s. Labor unions were created in Japan. Labor unions were created, and there was land reform. Land reform. More people got land to be able to farm. And as I said before, the emperor is no longer seen as a god. Emperor Hirohito is no longer seen as a god, or no longer able to hold power. No longer able to hold power. The power now rests in the hands of the people. The power now rests in the hands of the people. So we see Europe is on the rebuild. Japan is being rebuilt. They don't leave these nations in ashes, and they're now grooming them to take their rightful place among the modern nations in the United Nations. Japan, it only takes 7 years before they apply to the United Nations as a nation, and they've been pretty much a model industrial power ever since. They rose from the ashes. Well, this is the end of World War II. This is Mr. K's with 32.5b. I'm out of here.